This time of COVID experience for all of us has been a time of some loneliness, some isolation, and it's a time when we would like to really see each other face to face and see each other's faces. So I think the communion table at Forks has embroidered on it the word remembrance, and Jesus said, "Remember me." But since he also said that he wanted us all to be one, I think he wants us to remember each other. And so as we take communion today, we'll be able to remember the faces of the people that we haven't seen over this time. And we also want to remember the people that we've lost. I don't know all the people in Forks whom you've lost. A cousin of mine, David Westlake, who was an Air Force veteran, died just after Easter in a veterans home on Long Island. And his sister told me that he was the 36th person in that veterans home to die from the COVID crisis. And there were 30 more people in the home who were had the virus at that time. So we want to remember those who have served our country and have died in this virus and other ways. But this is not the first epidemic that some of us have lived through. I, like many of you, lived through the epidemic of the AIDS crisis. And strangely enough, this June is the beginning of the Gay Pride month. And at the beginning of that previous thing in 1984, it was kind of like, well, I've heard about some kind of epidemic that's off far away place, but I was celebrating that June and I went to San Francisco and I walked in the Gay Pride Parade in San Francisco. And little did I know that when I got home, a young man from our church who'd grown up there would come back to town to die with AIDS. And he sought the aid of the church, and nobody really had done much of that before. And it was a difficult thing. We had to learn how to respond. And the church was very helpful, but the community was filled with fear. The head of the library called me up on the phone and said I had to keep him out of the library because he might spread the disease. And the volunteer fire department said that they would not go into his house if the house caught fire because they were afraid. And when he got sicker and was in the hospital, a person put on his little hospital table a drinking glass, and they had filled it with bleach, and he thought it was something he was supposed to take. And that was his final end before he died from that. And so we remember that sometimes people in minorities, people who are looked down on, often face anger, often face being excluded. And so we want to remember the faces of people who are part of minorities who've been excluded and have been put back. But they're not all we want to remember. One of my best friends in college, Skip Knight, was a campus clown and somebody who joked all the time. And we had kept in touch after college. And I remember in the fall of 1987, I tried to get in touch with him and I couldn't. For some reason, he wasn't responding to the calls. And just an hour before our Christmas Eve service on that year, I pulled in my Christmas cards, and there was a letter from his parents, and I wondered what was that about. And that was telling me about his death with AIDS. And I had just an hour later to get ready for doing the Christmas Eve service. So I remember all of these faces: David Westlake, my cousin that died, Tommy Fisher, the young man, Skip Knight. Who are you remembering? And please try to see their faces as you prepare for communion today. Here's a song to help us to remember from that earlier epidemic. My brother lived in San Francisco. He said he'd really found his place. And when I go to San Francisco, everywhere I look, I see his face. But an I faced childhood under stark Montana skies. But Bud, he seemed to always have cities in his eyes. He longed for possibilities. He lived to move away. And he finally found his place in the city by the bay. Joe and I were best of friends in our small-time college town. But Joe had personality, what a campus clown. But his jokes hid deeper rivers that rumbled far below. And he rode the currents west, where the rapid waters flow. Lots of us had brothers there who were glad to show the sights and share the balmy freedoms of San Francisco nights. They loved it so much more than anywhere they'd been, and we thought they would be there when we went back again. My brother lived in San Francisco. He said he'd really found his place. And when I go to San Francisco,